This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Alright everyone, I hope you're all doing well. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Click that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. Make a little game of it. Turn it from red to grey. It's fun. It's brilliant over here. Now, Mike Coppinger, he's a well-respected guy within boxing, and he tends to get a lot of information and inside information that he puts out. And so much of it turns out to be true. Now, again, big up to Shady Slim. He made a video about it, which is what brought it to my attention. So I'll go over to Twitter, I'll check out Mike Coppinger, and some things that he's saying on here are a little bit alarming. Now me, I've said before, I spoke to Andy Ruiz quite a few times. He's supposed to be on the channel, but we can never quite find the time where I'm free and he's free. And I even tried to help him make the fight with Big Baby Jarrell Miller and Adam Kalnacki and Luis Ortiz. Even asked me to make pictures of that for him to put out on social media, all that kind of thing. So I've always liked Andy Ruiz. And when Big Baby Jarrell Miller, he failed the PED test, got pulled from the fight, Andy Ruiz Jr. was one that I was lobbying to get the fight with Anthony Joshua. Don't get me wrong, I didn't expect him to beat Joshua, okay? I wanted Joshua to win. I'm a Brit, of course. But I've always liked Andy Ruiz, and I knew that this fight with Joshua would change his life financially, because we knew that things weren't going great financially. So that's why I wanted it. But what I didn't expect was not only the win, but how he's changed since that win. He's become an Andy Ruiz Jr. that I'm not too fond of lately, to be brutally honest with you, which is a shame because he's a really, really nice, lovely, humble guy. But some of the things that he's saying lately are really starting to irritate me. All right, now, Mike Coppinger, as I said, he gets a lot of sources and they prove to be correct. And here's one of his statements about Andy Ruiz Jr. potentially pulling out or not fighting Anthony Joshua in Saudi Arabia. This is what he said. Sources tell The Athletic, whoever they are, that Andy Ruiz Jr. isn't expected to sign off on the rematch in Saudi Arabia unless he's guaranteed a significantly higher purse than the approximately $9 million he's guaranteed to fight Joshua again. So that's the first statement, right? Now, first of all, we don't know if it's 9 million. We don't know if it's a percentage. Whatever it may be, makes no difference. It's life-changing money. Andy, look where you were before the Joshua fight. Remember, Joshua chose you as a voluntary, a late notice voluntary for sure. And maybe he overlooked you. Yeah, maybe. But the fact is, you got paid a decent payday. Okay, you weren't ever going to get that anywhere else. And yes, Andy, he had just signed up to the PBC. He had, even though weeks before he did, I'm sending Eddie Hearn emails and everything saying, you need to be signing up Andy Ruiz Jr. Didn't listen, but hey-ho. But the point is that Joshua done you a favour. And out of that fight, you managed to sort out a lot of things, right, Andy? So not only have you turned out to be a bit of a hater or coming across as a hater, but I'm starting to get the impression that you're being brainwashed by the PBC and Al Heyman. Most recently, you've been sat there on Fox Sport on the Pacquiao-Thurman card doing some poetry work with Deontay Wilder, getting on like your best friends, even though I know that you don't particularly like him. You don't rate Deontay Wilder. But that aside, I'm worried because some of the things that he's been doing and saying is almost like he's being told what to do and say. And he's listening, which is something I never thought Andy Ruiz Jr. would do. I thought that he was always his own person and had his own thoughts. And regardless of what other people say, he will do it his way. Okay, and this is one of the things I've always liked about Andy Ruiz. But if it's $9 million or not $9 million, if it's a percentage, no matter what it is, it's going to be significantly higher than what you got for the first fight. And when you signed up for Joshua, remember, you approached Joshua. You approached Eddie Hearn. They didn't approach you. Okay, they were looking at other potential opponents, okay? Andy Ruiz, you weren't really an option for them. Luis Ortiz was the one that they wanted. Others potentially as well. So you lobbied toward them. Joshua done you a favour. And your life has been so much better since, right? You pulled off the upset. Congratulations. But you signed up for this knowing what the rematch is. If you didn't like the rematch terms, then you shouldn't have signed for Joshua, should you? You shouldn't have signed in the first place, which is why Dillian Whyte, when he was negotiating with Joshua, he went, well, first of all, the first fight, you won't pay me that well. Even Eddie Hearn said that. And the rematch clause is gash. And unless you change it, I ain't signing it. So Ruiz, you could have done that same thing, but you didn't. You accepted the terms. And within those terms, not only was the money fixed in there, but the choice of location for Joshua. He could choose anywhere in the world, and you had no choice. You weren't going to complain. You were happy. These are the kind of things that you negotiated before you signed the contract. So regardless of any of that, to try and hold out for more money, hang on a minute, what more money do you need? If it's $9 million, that's a pretty decent squiller right there, isn't it? $9 million? You never have to fight again. You could go to Saudi, lay down in the first round and never have to fight again. $9 million. Where else are you going to find that kind of money? Mike Coppinger has also said this point, which I disagree with Mike Coppinger, where he says that Andy Ruiz is already in danger of being stripped by the IBF since Kubrat Pulev is pushing for his mandatory shot. Ruiz also holds the WBA and WBA or WBO titles. If this drags into next year, it will be interesting. So the IBF bit I disagree with because, as we know, as a unified champion, it goes in order. What we do know is that the WBO are next. The one sanctioning body that the PBC really don't want. Okay, they've made it abundantly clear they don't recognise the WBO. They're not doing it. Okay, so maybe this is one of those situations where Al Heyman or Wilder or somebody somewhere is in Andy Ruiz's ear and saying, listen, man, if you come fight Wilder, we can pay you more than this $9 million. Not mentioned to the fact that he'll be done severely in court for not fighting Joshua, right? So that's the first thing. But it won't be for undisputed because the WBO, not happy with the PBC either, they'll go, no. Our WBO title is not going to be on the line. Stripped. The IBF will soon follow suit as well because they won't be happy that a champion of theirs is signing up for certain things and they're not fulfilling their contractual obligations. They will also strip him. The WBA, I don't think so. I see the WBA lately with some of the things that they've been doing as the little bitch of the WBC. They would jump to the tune of the WBC. All right, that's how I see it. We know that Mauricio Suleiman, the president of the WBC, has been meeting with the president of the WBA over the last few months, talking about potential unifications, undisputed, etc., etc. So these guys will probably let Andy Ruiz keep that belt. But legally, can he fight? Probably not. All right. So $9 million, this is what you agreed to, allegedly. So you signed for the goddamn fight. Now, Mike Coppinger also goes on and says, if Andy Ruiz objected to fighting Anthony Joshua in Saudi Arabia, he could likely fight it legally and cite security risk. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a level 2 on the United States travel list advisory. These are the 4 levels, blah, blah, blah. Basically, what it's saying is that with Saudi, level 2 is exercise increased caution. Okay? Where exercise increased caution in Saudi Arabia due to terrorism and threat of missile and drone attacks on civilian targets. All right, so there's that one with Saudi. Now, if anybody knows anything about the Middle East, you know that Saudi is one of the safest places you can go. Yes, there are issues. There are issues all over the world. There are issues in the United States of America. How many things are we hearing upon the news lately about mass shootings going on? Things like that. Wasn't 9/11 all those years ago, that disgusting attack on the Twin Towers? Wasn't that an act of terrorism too? So people can use all this. Saudi Arabia, listen, Amir Khan versus Billy Dib, was there problems? George Groves versus Callum Smith, was there problems? No. Okay, so if you went down that route, I'd be very, very surprised. Very surprised. And besides that, do you really think that Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua want to risk their lives too? Of course not. Of course not. There will be extra security. So if they tried that, that's pretty weak and pathetic, in my opinion. But either way, apparently they're still negotiating with DAZN as to whether or not DAZN are going to air it as well. There's no guarantees Joshua is not tied into DAZN. But he does give them a first refusal basis. But either way, Andy Ruiz, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you making this difficult? It's like you're becoming a PBC puppet. Working for the Almaic Haymanite. You've allowed yourself to be brainwashed into doing what people are telling you. Come on, Andy, don't do this. Come on, Andy, don't do that. And probably Wilder's probably tried it as well. And I'll be very surprised if Andy Ruiz listened to him. But the way that Andy Ruiz is acting lately, it wouldn't surprise me. Now, we know that there's going to be a press conference to officially announce this fight on Monday. But will Andy Ruiz Jr. be there? I have absolutely no idea. And hopefully Mike Coppinger is wrong on all of this. But to try and push for more than $9 million, if it is $9 million, for something that you agree to, Andy, is disgusting. Okay, where else are you going to find that kind of money? Remember, Joshua done you a favour, boy. He done you a favour. I like you, but you're acting like a real diva. How about don't fight Joshua, pull out the fight totally, get stripped of all your belts, and then get fined? How about that? You have to hand the keys back into your nice new house that you bought, and the cars and the watches. Plus a bit more. Is Al Heyman really going to look after you? As we know, when you joined up with Al Heyman in the PBC, he pretty much looked on you as below the likes of Dominic Brazil, Adam Kalinacki, Luis Ortiz, certainly Wilder, Charles Martin, and maybe even Chris Arreola, right? Why do you think he let you go and fight Joshua? Because it's free money to him. He didn't care if you won, lost, or drew. If you got smoothed out by Joshua, Al Heyman wouldn't have given a damn because he signed you up. He signed you up to become an opponent for some of these guys. Just think about it. Think about it. Anyway, that's what's going on. Andy Ruiz Jr. is apparently threatening to not sign to go to Saudi Arabia unless he gets more money than the alleged $9 million. Now, before we close out, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few people out there. Well, Andy Ruiz Jr., he's the champion. He calls the shots. He's the A-side. Wrong. Okay, wrong. There's a rematch clause for a reason. Okay, he didn't fight his way to become mandatory and then get this fight. Not at all. Anybody can have their day at the office. Andy Ruiz Jr. had his day at the office. Is he going to get it again? We don't know. He's going to have to fight Joshua again. Fact is, until he beats Joshua again, he is beholden to Eddie Hearn. And even if he does get past Anthony Joshua, guess what's happening next? Alexander Usyk. There will be no undisputed. It will be Alexander Usyk and another Eddie Hearn show. Think about it. Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all on the next one.